are talking through scenarios or things that happen in life or choices I have to make, one of my favorite things to do to them is just saying, well, what's the alternative? And so it's like where you're talking about like, well, I was given months or a few years to live. So it's like, am I going to go down that route or what's the alternative? And then where you're saying, well, so I sought out other things and this was an opinion. It's like, well, yeah, like what's the alternative? Die? Like, so you had to, in my eyes, it's like, yeah, you have to go seek something else out because
but many do not.
Right. And so that's
because they somehow buy into the concept that taking the route that they're the most familiar with, that seems the most comfortable, is the one that gives them the greatest chance of getting the outcome that they want.
Right.
And I would just say, I don't know if you're being objective about that. If you just took your emotions out of it and you actually looked at hardcore facts, you might realize that that's not actually accurate.
Yeah. Well, in the part where you said your wife was going to be a widow, I've seen your wife on the Solid podcast. I think she would have been okay. She probably would have found someone else.
She's pretty badass. Yeah.
I'm just messing with you.
No, it's true, right? And you know what I had to balance, Derick? I had to balance I remember, I don't know where I learned this, but I basically carried in my, let's just call it my right pocket, the truth was the universe and planet Earth and my family and everyone I would come in contact with, assuming I overcame cancer, needed me to make it and be here. Yes. And that was true. And then let's just say in my left pocket, what was also simultaneously true is that if I passed away, the universe and all of humanity was going to be just fine without me.
They would continue.
Yeah. And they would be telling jokes and eating mashed potatoes and going to the next baseball game probably hours, days, weeks after I was gone.
I mean, it's wild to look at it at, 30,000 foot view and view it that way.
That's it.
Yeah.
And today, I am vitally important to be here. And simultaneously, if I clocked out tonight, it'll all be okay.
Yeah.
So I live in that dance.
Yeah.
The dance of confidence mixed with humility. The dance that I really am extremely important and valuable to my spouse, to my kids, to everyone I come in contact with, to planet Earth, to whatever I'm putting my hands to. And simultaneously, it'll all keep going and somehow get where it needs to go, even if I'm not here in physical form. And I really think balancing that and dancing with that, and actually, again, one's not right and the other's not wrong.
Right.
It's a field. And the invitation from, again, God, life force, power, is will we rise in consciousness and enter a field and lay down and set aside our opinions and our conditioning and our programming and our points of view and stop being threatened by you seeing a subject matter different than me and start being fascinated and sit down and have a cup of coffee or a meal and say, I want to understand how you've arrived at the point you've arrived. Tell me about your mental journey, your psychological journey, your emotional journey. Why do you see it the way you see it? And what can I take in from that? And what can I sit with that will allow me to have greater empathy, will have greater connection and a greater perspective? Because if I'm just so quick to tell you that you're wrong, I may miss an opportunity to take in a piece of wisdom that could actually be an answer to helping me work through something or navigating a challenge that I haven't been able to work through. And it may come in a side door or a place I least expect it.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I love the podcast, is getting all these thoughts out there. And not only that, it's all recorded. So like I can go back and listen to what me and you talked about. I can have like a thought pop in my head of like, man, me and Ryan were talking about that. And what did he, and it's almost like you're saying you've read this same book multiple times, right? We can go back and reflect on some of these things. And I can go back 2 years ago and listen to podcasts that we did. And it seems like I'll accept it a different way every time you hear it. It's like I'm gonna, like, my mom said this to me once years ago, and it was like, it's just not your season. In a nutshell, it's kind of what she told me. Hey, you're like, you don't need to do all these things. Maybe it's not the season for one or two of these things. You need to be focusing on these things. In a nutshell, it's kind of what she was explaining to me. And I took that and thought, man, there's seasons for everything. And so when I hear this conversation now, it's hitting me one way. And then maybe a year from now, I come back and re-listen to it, and it's a whole nother way because I'm in a different season.
I couldn't agree more.
And, when you were talking about this, that cancer and all that, it made me, I've been open about this like the last year or two. I've always thought that I don't know why, but I always thought I was going to die young. And young is relative. I don't know,
Young
even
is
know what
relative.
young means, right?
That's true.
But I've always kind of had this thought of like, I need to do more when I'm younger because I'm not going to be around that long. And it's a weird thought to have. And so like the podcast was part of that. So when we had my son, this is like, I don't write in a diary. I've actually tried a few times recently, and I'll do a couple times and then I get off the habit on again. But this to me is that. I thought, like, what's cooler than, like, I don't know, maybe I live to be 100. I don't know. Say I don't. My son has 102 episodes. He can go on here and learn from his dad and his friends and see how I communicated with people, see how I, accepted. And most of the people that come in here, like me and you today, I met you here, right? So it's not like it's just me and my boys joking around. Like, we have like real conversations with strangers that we can both sit here open-minded and accept each other, right? And so
and there wouldn't be a single subject you couldn't bring up that I couldn't discuss.
Yeah.
Because I'm not lost anymore in the idea that these thoughts that come into my mind are somehow more accurate than the thoughts that are coming into your mind. And I'm very clear that most of the thoughts that even come into my mind aren't even mine. They were picked up along my journey of 43 years here on the planet. And more than likely, they're just an opinion from another human that may serve me well or may not. But they're pretty meaningless unless I attach meaning to them. So if I have a thought that a sunny day is a good day and a rainy day is a bad day, is that really actually true? Or is that just a concept that if I agree with it, then I will create a feeling and an experience based on the weather according to what I've decided it is? But if you decide that actually your best days are when it storms and when it rains, and for some reason you dislike the sun, haven't you essentially created the exact opposite experience from the same exact weather?
Right.
Which one of us is right?
Right.
So if people say, man, fuck cancer, screw cancer, cancer's terrible, it's evil, right? I hate cancer. Well, perhaps then that's exactly what you create it to be. And I say cancer is the greatest gift I have ever experienced or been handed or given in my entire time here. And I've had people downright get angry and say, "You can't say that, Ryan. That's bullshit. It ain't no fucking gift." And I say, well, it's not for you.
Right.
You are right. It's not a gift for you. But you don't get to dictate my perspective. And I'm not trying to dictate yours.
That's the difference.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
Because beyond the ideas of right and wrong, there is a field, and I'll meet you there. You can share how you see things. You can give your point of view. I can listen and hear how you would describe why you think it's this way. But if you feel a right to control or manipulate then what I do with that, that's where we live differently. I have no interest in persuading or convincing anyone of anything. In fact, I think some people feel like I'm a maddening human because they want certainty.
Yep.
They want to be tethered to being right or being tethered to, I know I'm doing life well because I can measure it by these categories in this way. But if they were deeply, deeply honest, I think what they would discover is the thing that I dealt with from age 4 to age 35. And only through my cancer journey have I been able to work through it and let it go. And that was for 31 years. I never had a single day that I didn't feel like I wasn't good enough. And if you always are waking up every single day on some level, at least for an hour, a minute, a category, and you're thinking to yourself, I should be doing more. I should be better. And you reinforce that. Why should any of us be shocked then to discover we have some form of dis-ease? Because I was never at ease. I couldn't be. Because it didn't matter how much money I made. It didn't matter how many people affirmed that I had a great marriage. It didn't matter how well I was following some diet. It didn't matter how many accolades I won in business. It didn't matter whether my children were healthy. It didn't matter if I lived on the right street in the right part of town. It didn't matter if I drove the car that people thought I should drive. There was always a voice telling me, you're still blowing it. You still ain't good enough. You should be getting up earlier. You should be having more sex. It should feel like this. It should look like that. You're way behind so-and-so on your savings. You're not producing the way they are. Look at the leaders bulletin. Why don't you have 5 kids instead of 2 or 3? How does one escape that unless they discover it's a made-up idea in the first place?